Johnny Carson freezes on live television. 7-year-old girl, dead silence, tears, 30 seconds of airtime collapse. Audience confused, America watching. One whispered sentence caused it all. What did she say? Johnny Carson's hand was shaking, not a nervous twitch, not a slip, a tremor, visible from the front row. It was November 14th, 1985. The Tonight Show was live at NBC's Burbank studios. 300 people sat in that audience. Millions more were watching from their living rooms. And Johnny Carson couldn't speak. For 23 years, he had owned this moment. The timing, the pauses, the laughs. 11,000 shows without losing control. But now his face had gone pale. His cue cards fluttered like leaves in a storm. His mouth opened, then closed again. Nothing came out. Ed McMahon shifted in his chair. Brr. Eban slowed, then stopped. Producer's voice crackled through Johnny's earpiece, sharp with panic. Brr. Oni, you're live. Talk to us. 30 seconds passed. Bar. End television. That's an eternity die bar. Eid air like this wasn't just rare. It was unthinkable. The audience didn't laugh. Bar. Idn't cough bar. Idn't move bar. Hey followed Johnny's gaze. Bar. Ront row bar. Enter seat. Little girl stood there. Bar. He couldn't have been more than 7 bar. Loo dress, 2 sizes too big. Roan hair neatly brushed. Bar. N her tiny wrist. An adult man's watch. Sliding loose. Barely held in place. In her hands a folded piece of paper. Bar. He held it the way people hold something fragile. Brr. Our final. Oni stared at her like he was seeing a ghost. Brr. His eyes were wet now. Brr. Oti misty bar et. Omionian in the audience whispered. Is this a bit? Bar. Oh, one answered. Oni Carson had faced hecklers, disasters, political pressure, national tragedy. Bar. He joked through wars. Rough scandals. Bar. Rough grief. Bar. At this. Bar. His was different. The director waved frantically behind the camera. Stagehands froze. Security shifted their weight, unsure whether to move. Johnny didn't blink. The king of late-night television, on his knees emotionally standing under studio lights, was unraveling in front of America, and all anyone could think was the same question. What could a 7-year-old girl possibly have said to break Johnny Carson? And why was she still holding that paper like the show depended on it? The girl hadn't made a sound. That was the first thing Johnny noticed. No clapping, no smiling, no whispering to the woman beside her. While the rest of the audience leaned forward, hungry for laughs, she sat perfectly still, eyes locked on him, unblinking. Not curious, not excited. Waiting. Johnny tried to shake it off. He'd seen thousands of faces in that front row. Fans, tourists, drunk executives, nervous guests. But this girl didn't look like she was there to watch a show. She looked like she was there to do something. He glanced at her again during the monologue. Then again. Each time, his timing slipped just a little. The watch on her wrist caught the light. Too big, too heavy. It slid down her arm every time she moved, yet she never adjusted it. Like it wasn't really hers. And then there was the seat beside her. Empty. Front row seats on The Tonight Show didn't stay empty. People fought for them, paid fortunes for them. Yet that chair sat untouched. No coat, no bag, no jacket draped over it. Just space. Johnny felt something tighten in his chest. He delivered another punchline. The audience laughed on cue. She didn't. Instead, her fingers tightened around the folded paper in her hands. Creased once, then twice. Worn like it had been opened and closed 100 times. Johnny finished the joke. Applause rose, then faded. That was when she stood up. The movement was small. But in that room, it was thunder. The woman beside her reached out instinctively, whispered something urgent. The girl shook her head. Security stepped forward. Johnny raised his hand without thinking. Wait. The word came out sharper than he intended. He walked to the edge of the stage and knelt down, joints cracking, cameras zooming in. Up close, she seemed even smaller. What's your name, sweetheart? He asked gently. Her voice didn't shake. Emily. Johnny smiled. He always smiled at kids. But then she said the next sentence, and the smile never came back. My daddy loved you, Mr. Carson. Johnny inhaled, then stopped. He waited for her to continue. She didn't. She just held out the paper, and in that moment Johnny understood something terrible. This wasn't a fan moment. This wasn't a surprise. This was a delivery. And whatever was written on that page had traveled a long way, just to reach him. 8 weeks earlier, Emily's world had already ended. Her father's name was Michael Warren. He was 30, 4 years old, a high school janitor in Pasadena, California. Not rich, not famous, not important, at least not on paper. But to Emily, he was everything. Michael worked long hours, late nights, quiet mornings, the kind of job people walked past without noticing the man pushing the mop. But every night, without fail, he came home before 11:30, because that's when The Tonight Show came on. Michael had one worn-out recliner in their small living room. The fabric was torn at the arms, the springs creaked when he sat down. Emily always climbed onto his lap. And when Johnny Carson stepped onto that screen, Michael changed. His shoulders dropped, his breath slowed. Life got quieter. He knew every rhythm, every pause, every look. Johnny gave the camera before a punchline. Landed. Sometimes Michael laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes. Sometimes he just smiled. Soft, tired, grateful. "Why do you love him so much?" Emily once asked, staring up at the television glow. Michael didn't hesitate. "Because when I watch him," he said, "I forget that life is hard." Emily didn't fully understand that yet, but she liked the way her dad sounded when he said it. On weekends, Michael practiced Johnny's golf swing in the tiny backyard. At dinner, he repeated monologue jokes until Emily's mom, Karen, rolled her eyes and laughed. That laugh mattered to him. 3 months before everything broke, Michael did something reckless. He entered a radio. Contest, not once, not twice. Over 200 calls in one weekend. Karen thought he was crazy. Then the phone rang. Front row tickets. 2 of them. Michael screamed so loud the neighbors thought something was wrong. He grabbed Emily, lifted her off the ground, spun her in circles. "We're going to see Johnny, baby," he said, breathless, front row, so close we can see him breathe. Emily had never seen her father that happy. She didn't know that happiness was about to become memory. On September 15th, a drunk driver ran a red light on Colorado Boulevard. Michael's car was hit on the driver's side. He died at the scene. Emily was supposed to be with him. A last-minute cold kept her home. She never got to say goodbye. But the tickets were still there. 2 front-row seats, one with her father's name printed on it, and a dream that refused to disappear. The house went quiet after the funeral, not peaceful, empty. Emily stopped laughing, then she stopped eating. At night, she cried herself to sleep, calling for a father who would never answer. During the day, she sat on the floor of her room, turning the same toy over and over in her hands. Karen didn't know how to reach her. She tried bedtime stories, tried hugs, tried pretending to be strong. Nothing worked. One night, while cleaning Michael's nightstand, Karen found the tickets, front row, November 14th, 1985, non-refundable, non-transferable. One ticket still had Michael's name printed across the top. Karen sat on the bed and stared at them for a long time. Throwing them away felt like erasing him. Using them felt impossible. How could she sit in that seat without him? Emily saw the tickets and walked over quietly. "What are those?" she asked. Karen hesitated. "Something your daddy won." Emily picked one up, ran her finger over the printed name. "Are we going?" Karen shook her head. "GE. I don't think so, honey. It might be too sad." Emily didn't cry. She looked up, eyes steady, serious in a way no 7-year-olds should be. "Daddy wanted to take me." Karen nodded. "I know. If we don't go," Emily said softly, "his dream dies too." The words hit Karen harder than any scream could have. Emily swallowed and added, "I don't want Daddy's dream to die." Karen broke. She knelt in front of her daughter and pulled her close, tears soaking Emily's hair. A child was teaching her how to grieve. They would go. The decision didn't make the pain smaller, but it gave it a direction. The night before the taping, Karen found Emily sitting on her bed with a piece of paper and a pencil. She was writing slowly, carefully, stopping after every few words to think. "What's that, sweetheart?" Karen asked. Emily folded the paper and tucked it into her pocket. "It's for Johnny." Karen smiled faintly. She assumed it was a drawing, a thank you note. She didn't ask to see it. She should have, because that piece of paper wasn't a child's note. It was the last thing Michael Warren ever wrote. And Emily was about to carry it somewhere it was never meant to go, straight into the hands of the man who had unknowingly saved her father's life. The house went quiet after the funeral, not peaceful, empty. Emily stopped laughing, then she stopped eating. At night she cried herself to sleep, calling for a father who would never answer. During the day she sat on the floor of her room, turning the same toy over and over in her hands. Karen didn't know how to reach her. She tried bedtime stories, tried hugs, tried pretending to be strong. Nothing worked. One night, while cleaning Michael's nightstand, Karen found the tickets. Front row, November 14th, 1985. Non-refundable, non-transferable. One ticket still had Michael's name printed across the top. Karen sat on the bed and stared at them for a long time. Throwing them away felt like erasing him. Using them felt impossible. How could she sit in that seat without him? Emily saw the tickets and walked over quietly. "What are those?" she asked. Karen hesitated. "Something your daddy won." Emily picked one up, ran her finger over the printed name. "Are we going?" Karen shook her head gently. "I don't think so, honey. It might be too sad." Emily didn't cry. She looked up, eyes steady, serious in a way no 7-year-olds should be. "Daddy wanted to take me." Karen nodded. "I know." "If we don't go," Emily said softly, "his dream dies too." The words hit Karen harder than any scream could have. Emily swallowed and added, "I don't want Daddy's dream to die." Karen broke. She knelt in front of her daughter and pulled her close, tears soaking Emily's hair. A child was teaching her how to grieve. They would go. The decision didn't make the pain smaller, but it gave it a direction. The night before the taping, Karen found Emily sitting on her bed with a piece of paper and a pencil. She was writing slowly, carefully, stopping after every few words to think. "What's that, sweetheart?" Karen asked. Emily folded the paper and tucked it into her pocket. "It's for Johnny." Karen smiled faintly. She assumed it was a drawing, a thank you note. She didn't ask to see it. She should have, because that piece of paper wasn't a child's note. It was the last thing Michael Warren ever wrote, and Emily was about to carry it somewhere it was never meant to go, straight into the hands of the man who had unknowingly saved her father's life. November 14th, 1985, Burbank, California, NBC Studios. The drive there was silent. Emily sat in the back seat, clutching the folded paper, her little fingers pressed against it like it was the only thing keeping her alive. The city. Lights blurred past the window, streaks of yellow and white against the dark sky. She didn't speak. She didn't look at her mother. Karen glanced in the rearview mirror. "Daddy's watching from heaven, sweetheart," she whispered. Emily nodded slowly. "I know, Mommy. That's why I have to give Johnny the letter." The studio doors opened. The energy hit them immediately. Laughter, cheers, camera crews hustling, the hottest ticket in television. The front row of The Tonight Show. Emily's eyes scanned the crowd. Everyone else was laughing, clapping, living in the moment. She didn't. She noticed the empty chair next to her. Front row seats were supposed to be full, but hers had a space left behind. The seat her father would have taken. The seat Michael Warren had won. Emily took a deep breath, wrapped the oversized watch around her tiny wrist so it wouldn't fall, and held the folded paper tight. The lights dimmed. The band started playing. Ed McMahon's booming voice echoed, "Ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Carson, bruh." Her applause erupted. Millie didn't clap, bruh. He didn't cheer, bruh. He just stood, bruh. Aaron grabbed her arm. "Emily, no, bruh." Emily was already moving, bruh, walking toward the stage bar. Security instinctively stepped forward. Oni raised his hand. "Bah. Wait," he said, "bah." The room went dead silent. Front row tickets had never been this still, bruh. OT in 23 years, bah. OT in 11,000 shows. Oni knelt down to her level, bah. Knees cracking, bah. Amera's focused, capturing every moment. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked gently, bah. "Emily," she whispered, bah. Oni smiled softly. Then came the next sentence, Bar. My daddy loved you, Mr. Carson, Bar. He words landed like a thunderclap. His smile vanished. Bar. The audience held its collective breath. ND Johnny Carson, the man who had faced every nightmare live on television, realized something impossible. His night, this moment, was not about entertainment. It was about a father's love and a little girl's courage to deliver it. Pause 2 seconds. The folded paper in Emily's hands wasn't just a letter, it was a bridge, and Johnny Carson was about to cross it. Johnny Carson took a deep breath. He reached out slowly and took the folded paper from Emily's tiny hands. It was worn, creased, trembling slightly in his grip. The audience leaned forward. 300 pairs of eyes fixed on him, millions watching from their living rooms. He unfolded it. At first, the words looked like any letter. But then, he read the first line. Mr. Carson, you don't know me, but you saved my life when I was 12. Johnny paused, blinking rapidly. He had faced hecklers, broken sets, actors in crisis. He had never had words stop him mid-sentence. But these did. He read on. In 1955, my father died in a factory accident. I stopped talking. I stopped eating. Your show made me laugh. Your voice brought me back. 30 years later, I had a daughter. I never got to meet you, but I wanted her to know you, and now she does? Johnny's hands shook. The folded paper quivered as if echoing the weight of every word. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Ed McMahon stood. Johnny, he whispered, unsure how to help. On his knees bent, Bar. He sank closer to Emily's level, Bar, his face pale, Bar. Yes, wet. He Tonight Show, the man who made a nation laugh, was silent. He folded paper, contained more, Bar, story of a janitor from Pasadena, a bar. Father who loved laughter more than anything, final wish carried across time by his daughter, Bar. Oni's fingers clenched the letter tighter, Bar. E tried to speak. Othing, Burr. Ears ran down his face, Burr. E tried again, Burr. ND the room held its breath. Millie reached out and placed her small hand on his, Burr. Daddy said you would understand, Mr. Carson, she whispered. Her voice steady, Bar. ND. Something broke inside him. Not anger, not fear. Something softer, profound, human. He looked at her, then at the audience, and finally back at the letter. His voice cracked, barely a whisper. I had no idea. For the first time in 23 years, the king of late-night television lost control. He wasn't performing. He wasn't joking. He was just feeling. The audience remained still. A collective hush fell over the studio. No one moved. No one dared. Because in that moment, Johnny Carson was not a star, not a legend, not a comic genius. He was just a man touched by a father's love, delivered through the bravest 7-year-old in front of him. Pause 3 seconds, and everyone watching knew they were witnessing something far rarer than laughter. They were witnessing humanity. Emily had given him more than a letter. She had given him a story, one that would stay with him forever. And that story, Michael Warren's final wish, was about to echo across generations. Johnny Carson lowered the letter slowly. His hands still shook. The audience was frozen. No applause, no laughter, just silent anticipation. He looked at Emily, her eyes wide, unwavering, tiny hands clutching the last piece of her father's dream. Your father, Johnny began, voice breaking, didn't die in that accident by chance. He paused, swallowing hard. Michael Warren. He was already sick, and he knew he didn't have much time. The audience gasped softly. Johnny continued. He wanted something bigger than himself. He wanted you to have this moment. He wanted you to know that laughter is how we survive. Emily's lips trembled. She nodded slowly. She understood. Johnny held the folded letter against his chest. Then he straightened. A deep inhale. He began to read aloud, carefully, reverently. Mr. Carson, you were the only person in the world who understood joy when it felt impossible. 30 years later, my daughter holds your laughter. Please tell her I loved her, and remind her that life's hardest nights are survived with a smile. Each word landed like a hammer. Each pause stretched the room. Each tear threatened to break the silence completely. Johnny looked back at Emily. Her tiny face held courage far beyond her years. "I promise you, Emily," he whispered. "Your father's love didn't end that night. It lives in you. It lives here." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "And I will never forget him." The audience sat, stunned. Ed McMahon wiped his own eyes discreetly. Amaris captured every second, every trembling hand, every tear, every silent breath. Hen Johnny did something even more remarkable. He reached into his jacket pocket, oiled out his signature navy blue pocket square. Brr. Oiled carefully, precise as always. "I want you to have this, Emily," he said softly. "Brr. Whenever you miss your daddy, hold this. Remember that somewhere, someone is trying to make people smile. Just like he wanted Brr." Millie clutched it like gold. Her mother cried openly beside her. ND for a moment. The Tonight Show was no longer about jokes, celebrity, or cameras. T was about love, Brr. ND, the invisible threads that connect people, even across time and distance, Barper. Oni Carson stood. E looked at Emily one last time. Hen the audience erupted. Bar. OT for a punchline. Bar. OT for a celebrity. UT for a 7-year-old girl who had reminded the king of late night what truly mattered. Pause 2 seconds, Brr. His night, this single moment, would stay in television history. OT as comedy. OT as entertainment.br. UT as proof, brah. Then in the darkest times, love finds a way to speak. The cameras cut to commercial. The audience sat in stunned silence. Bar, bar. Ohm whispered, bar. Ohm cried. Ohm simply held their breath, afraid the moment would vanish. Act stage, Johnny Carson asked the producer to bring Emily and Karen over Babar. Iwa. And Ted, one more moment, one more chance to honor Michael Warren. He handed them a framed photograph, signed personally, for Emily and Michael Warren. "Your daddy taught me something tonight. Keep laughing forever. Johnny Carson." Emily's mother sobbed openly. Emily held the frame tightly, her little heart swelling with a mix of sorrow and wonder. She looked up at Johnny. "Thank you," she whispered. Johnny knelt, voice soft, warm. "Your father was a hero, Mom. Emily's going to be just fine." Every year after, on Emily's birthday, Johnny would dedicate a joke to Michael Warren, a private acknowledgement of a man who had never met him, yet whose life had touched him deeply. Emily grew up carrying that lesson. She became a grief counselor in Los Angeles, helping children who had lost parents. Every day, she used her father's story to show that healing is possible. On her office wall hangs Johnny's pocket square, framed in gold. Next to it, the signed photograph. Beside that, a copy of her father's letter. She still wears Michael's watch. It fits now. Every birthday, she watches old Tonight Show reruns. And she tells her patients the same thing Johnny told her that night. Laughter isn't about forgetting pain. It's about surviving it. When Johnny Carson died in 2005, Emily wrote a letter to his widow, Alexis. A month later, she received a reply. "Johnny never forgot you, Emily. He talked about that night often. He said your father's letter reminded him why he did what he did for 30 years. Not to be famous, but to help people smile when smiling felt impossible. Today, Emily has a daughter of her own, 7 years old. She and her mother watch the tape together. Did Johnny really cry, Mommy?" the little girl asks. "Yes, baby," Emily smiles. "Because my daddy's words reached him." And that is what love does. It reaches people, even when we are gone, even across decades, even in a brief, trembling moment on a television stage. Emily's story is proof. Courage, love, and laughter can survive any tragedy. Sometimes all it takes is one 7-year-old with a letter in her hand. Pause 2 seconds. If this story touched you, share it. Tell someone who needs to hear it, because even in your darkest night, there's always a reason to smile. The night ended. The camera stopped rolling. The lights dimmed. But the memory of that moment, the 7-year-old girl, the folded letter, Johnny Carson's tears, remained. It wasn't just television history. It was human history. Emily and Karen walked out of NBC studios that night. Front row tickets clutched in hand. A framed photo tucked safely under Emily's arm. A pocket square in her tiny hands. They weren't just carrying objects. They were carrying love, hope, a connection that defied time. Johnny Carson returned to the stage. the king of late night once again. But something had changed. He had seen the power of a father's love, the courage of a child, and the audience had witnessed a vulnerability rarely shown on television. The story didn't end there. For decades, Emily carried it forward, helping children heal, sharing laughter, teaching that even in the hardest moments, joy can survive. And the cycle continues. Emily's daughter now knows the story, knows that courage isn't about strength, it's about heart. Johnny Carson passed away in 2005, but that night, November 14th, 1985, remains immortal. A moment when laughter stopped, tears flowed, and love transcended everything. So when you think of joy, when you think of heartbreak, remember Emily, remember Michael, remember the man who made America laugh for decades, and remember the little girl who reminded him, and all of us, what truly matters. If this story fed you, don't just watch silently. Like, comment, share, tell us, what moment of unexpected kindness changed your life? Where are you watching from tonight? Because stories like this, stories about love, courage, and laughter, deserve to be passed on, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find your own reason to smile tonight.